Hello, good morning, and welcome to the latest in our weekly Jack session videos, working our way through emotional needs, thinking about different things. Sam, hello, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. Tasty like a warm quiche.
A
How are
warm
you?
quiche.
How are you? How art thou?
I don't like quiche. I know that much. I know that much is true. Never seen the point of quiche. Yeah,
That's
no
no point.
works for me. I'm very well, thank you. I am today. The
What's
day.
changed for you since we last spoke? What's changed for you since we last?
Well, at the moment, I'm a little bit warm, not because it's especially warm outside. The day we're recording this is a little bit cooler. The sun's gone in a little bit, so I'm enjoying being a little bit cooler. However, I'm a little bit hot because my dog has decided to go to sleep on me. There he is.
Oh.
So he's like just like sitting next to me, like with his head on my leg. So he's quite hot, and I can feel him like his heartbeat. It's a bit weird. So that's Junior. He's I think he might have featured in one of our last videos as well. He came to say hello at some point, so I'll try not to bang on about him too much. So yeah, I'm feeling all right. Yeah, in this ever-changing world in which we live.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's
like I thought you were going to burst into song then. I thought you were going to burst into song.
Live and Let Die. Is that large from, isn't it?
Guns N' Roses version, best version? I think so.
Yes, forgot about that. Google that, friends, if you've never heard that. Guns N' Roses, Live and Let Die. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that sends you down a Guns N' Roses shaped chasm. End up listening to Civil War on repeat. That's a song.
And the timeless Sweet Child of Mine guitar part, which is like one of the all-time great riffs in the history of rock music. Amazing. Superb. Anyway, Guns N' Roses aside, Sam, in the last few weeks, we've been working our way through the things we call emotional needs. Which are things that we all need to feel at different stages and at different levels in order to feel good about ourselves. And
Absolutely.
Various ones. V's looked at a few with us as well. And the one that we're focusing on specifically today is the emotional need of affection.
Ooh.
Affection. Would you like me to read the definition?
Please.
I can read the definition of affection. It says here, affection is being shown care and closeness. For example, people saying, I love you, or giving you lots of hugs, etc. So it's slightly different than some of the others we've looked at. Affection. Are you an affectionate kind of guy, Sam? What does affection look like for you?
I think the thing about affection, right, is it's really easy to think it's just about touching other people, or that in some way it's an effeminate quality, but and that somehow being like a negative thing if you're a male or something weird like that, which definitely isn't true. I think affection comes in all sorts of different guises, really. I know lots of people of all different kind of ages, genders, backgrounds, whatever, that really appreciate affection.
Keep talking.
Whether it's the kind of the man hug. I love how many different kind of handshakes there are. Like, if you are somebody who has invented a handshake with a friend, that is an affectionate thing to do in a lot of ways. If you are somebody that greets people with a hug, that's an affectionate thing. If you're the kind of person that, likes a handshake, or likes to, I don't know, maybe it bothers you more where you sit when you're with a group of friends, like who you share a sofa with or who you don't, or whether you're comfortable leaning back on somebody else or something like that. It just makes you an affectionate person, and it's a beautiful thing. It's also quite a strong thing, because I think being affectionate with somebody, like a lot of these emotional needs, because we're talking about the needs that we have, but we're also talking about how to display them for other people. And I think a big thing about these is it requires vulnerability to display them for somebody else. It requires me to be vulnerable for me to show somebody else appreciation, or to show somebody else support, or to show somebody else comfort, or to show somebody, that requires vulnerability on my part. It doesn't require very much vulnerability for me to appreciate you making me a cup of tea. Because you've done something for me. It's something you do regularly, thankfully, and it's a very simple thing for me to show you appreciation. It would be more difficult if there was some kind of social dynamic that separated us potentially. But affection, showing that to somebody, or maybe needing that for somebody, to me feels like, and maybe it's a male thing, I don't know, but it feels like there's an extra level of vulnerability in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely some people that seem to be, you would describe them as affectionate people, and affection, like you're absolutely right. It can demonstrate itself physically, but also verbally. You can be verbally affectionate as well as physically affectionate, and knowing what different people need and how different people communicate is an important part of self-awareness, but also awareness of what each other needs. So we always joke about this. Sue, who used to be part of our Jack team, would always is what she would always describe herself as, like, what was the term she used? Like temporarily affectionate, so, or something like that. Like, so she's partly affectionate. So there's some people that she would always hug, some people that she would never want to hug. And we would always joke, me and her, even though we've known each other for like 20 years, like, that we would never hug. Like, some people, I would always give them a hug. Like, you know, I'm not particularly affectionate, but I do like hugging people. I like, but there's some people that I wouldn't hug.
It's weird, isn't it?
It is weird. It's like, it's one of the unexplained things. But when we're thinking of, so rather than maybe focusing today on trying to speculate as to who we can hug and who we can't hug, we want people watching or listening to this to think about how important that physical and verbal affection is for them. And if you're somebody that requires that, let's talk about the physical affection side of things first. Probably this lockdown period has been really, really hard because we can't hug people apart from people that are in our house. So you might find yourself hugging your mum a whole lot more, or your sister or your brother, than you would have done before. Because we can't, I mean, it's sort of relaxed at the moment, but we're still supposed to be socially distancing. So hugging people is not a thing. You can't go up to a mate that you haven't seen for ages and give them a big hug. When your man gang meets at Laurel Park, you pull up on your bike, you give people a hug or just a side or a shoulder thing. You can't do that at the moment, or you're not supposed to. So it's hard, and it's a legitimate way of having a need met. And for some people, that's really important. For others, it's their worst possible idea. It's like their idea of hell. There's like a well-known meme that has been around for ages. One of the earliest ones of like people who like watch their personal space, and it's a Mr. Bean kind of meme, isn't there? Where like somebody goes up to hug Mr. Bean, and Mr. Bean just shoves him in the face, like get out of my way. No hugs. I'm not doing it. And some of you might be like that. It's like, oh no, get away from me. I don't want hugs. I don't want to be told that, oh, I love you, or how you doing. They don't want that verbal or physical affection. For other ones of you, it might be really important, and that's legit.
That's a legit thing. And I think there's obviously, and we can follow this down some massive tangent about consent, but I think it's safe to say that if you are somebody that is very affectionate, then just be careful, because I remember I was on a gap year at one point in my life, and there was a big group of us who were all about the same age. There was probably about 25 of us on this gap year, and there was one guy that would go around every morning. He was I think one of his parents was American. I think the other one might have been from one of the islands just off the coast of America or something. I forget exactly I think he'd lived for a while in one of those islands. So the family culture he was from, the society around him culture that he was from, he would go around every morning and he'd give everybody a hug. Male, female, age, gender, like didn't matter. He would give every single person a hug in the morning to say good morning. Yeah. And there was one girl there who was from Germany, and again, without getting into racial stereotypes, like she was not her personally, she didn't really like this guy that she barely knew hugging her every morning. That was a very deeply personal thing for her. That she would only let a very few people in her life hug her, and he was not one of them. Not because she didn't like him, just because that meant something very different to her than it did to him.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing about affection, whether it is physical or verbal.
Yeah.
It will mean something very different to different people. To one person, a hug is they do it every day to everybody. To somebody else, that is a very special thing they reserve only for very special people. Holding hands is a similar thing. Saying I love you. Some of you never say I love you ever, and will probably only ever say it to the person that you end up spending the rest of your life with, if there is such a person. Some of you come from the family cultures where every time somebody leaves a room, they say, love you.
Yeah.
There's so much about our culture like built into that as well.
Absolutely.
So just an encouragement for you guys that are quite affectionate. Just be aware that some people don't necessarily appreciate it in the same way as you're trying to give it. They don't know your intentions, but also for you guys, like we hope that you're okay in this time where you're not getting as much as you hope for, like you would normally want.
Yeah.
And also try not to take it personally if somebody turns down your hug, or somebody responds a bit weirdly to you saying I love you, or saying something that sounds a bit more affectionate. That other person, just that might mean something quite different to them than it means to you.
So the self-awareness thing for this particular emotional need is kind of ramped up because there's almost more at stake, like to be aware of your own need for the need for affection, but also for other people, being aware of being able to, like, sometimes we use the phrase like reading the room, like if you've got somebody who clearly is not a huggy kind of person, like forcing your need for affection onto somebody else that doesn't want to go there is actually really inappropriate. Particularly in a school context, when we get back to school and there's more people around, some people are very uncomfortable, understandably so, with physical contact. So you will have probably, if you're in a relationship or you've got a boyfriend, girlfriend, like you will have probably been told by friends at some point to get a room, or to, for goodness sake, take yourself off. If you're being what some people might deem to be inappropriately physical because of your need for affection. And that might not be with necessarily with a boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be with just friends. You could be very huggy. There was somebody that used to come to Jack, actually, who was a pupil, who at the end of, we got to know them quite well, but at the end of every session, they would walk out saying to like me and Sue, be like, thanks, Sue, love you, Chris, love you, Sue. And I, the first time they did it, I was like, oh, that's quite interesting. Do I go, love you too? So we had to think it through, and we all have to do that. And that's, again, a self-awareness thing. So if you're in a position where you're unsure of your own, how affectionate you are, then you don't need to feel that you need to be pushed into a situation where you need to respond in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable. But perhaps more importantly, it's really important that you don't make other people feel uncomfortable with your need to be affectionate as well. And again, like all these things, comes down to the self-awareness thing. How is this making me feel? If I'm uncomfortable, if somebody else is uncomfortable, read the room, understand yourself, and express that affection in a appropriate, helpful, healthy way with people for whom it's reciprocated and important for them, and stay away from the people that don't.
And all of that says, well, like, credit to you if you are the kind of person that will go out of your way to be affectionate to other people, because that is quite vulnerable and that is quite brave. And if you are the kind of person that is up for doing that, going out and hugging people, telling people things about themselves, that sort of stuff, then keep going. Like, that's awesome that you're bringing that into the world. And like all of us with all of these needs, we have to learn how to do them well and how to get them, receive them well. And that goes for you guys as well, obviously, but go for it, especially as well. I just want to, especially for any guys out there who maybe feel quite affectionate, but think that it's not you know, seen as manly or whatever. That kind of construct of what it is to be masculine is such a load of nonsense.
Yeah.
So you go for it, because the world needs more men that are willing to be affectionate, I think.
Similarly speaking, if you're a girl, doesn't mean you need to hug and be physical and do all those things that are traditionally thought of as or feminine.
Absolutely.
If you're not a huggy girl, then make sure people around you know that, and you're perfectly entitled to do that and not feel you need to hug all your mates in the morning, because that's weird. If that would be weird for you. So good. Right, we're going to finish up there. Thanks for listening, guys. Hope this has been helpful. If there's stuff that we've talked about, hopefully they're all kind of things that will spark off thoughts for you in your journey of self-awareness and what emotional needs are important for you in order to feel good. And to be aware of those positive ways to get the need for comfort and all these other emotional needs met is really important. Sam, thank you as always for your
pleasure
in this wonderful call. I'm sorry if any of you have experienced a bit of glitchiness. My internet's been a bit dodgy this morning, so if any of the things missed out, I hope that didn't take anything away from what we talked about this morning too much. And we'll see you again soon on our next Jack session. Thank you, friends. Au revoir.